I'm Roger and welcome to the shop. Here I'm going into part 4 of the Suntracker 28-foot party hut rebuild. And this is going to cover pretty much exclusively the console, because there was a whole lot to it. Once again, this will be a slideshow with narration, because at the time we didn't even have a thought of making a video of this. And I wish I would have taken a few more pictures back when I did. But at any rate, we'll get on with the build and all what went on with this console. It was extremely complex, but it's mostly electrical, and that's right up my alley. So check it out. Here we go. Okay, and here we go with part 4, and this is going to cover building the console and everything that went into it. I did this in my shop here at home. Had brought the old console, and you may remember seeing a picture of that. I'll cover it here in a second. Did use a few parts out of the old one. Up here where the instruments were, there's nothing wrong with this wood. It was all in real good shape, and it saved me from having to redo all these cutouts. And same with over here, although I did end up modifying this a little bit as I went on with the build. As you saw with this one back here, it's quite a bit deeper and larger than this was the original one, and of course the bottom was all rotted out of it and everything, but you could see there's quite a bit of a size difference now. Here's a side view of it. This was done, as I had mentioned in one of the early videos, so we could put 2 house batteries underneath this just for house power and keep it isolated from the motor. That way, if you were out having a good time and running a lot of things, you wouldn't run the battery down and not be able to start the engine. Been there, done that, and it's no fun. This is a view of the inside after I covered the cabinet, which was covered with vinyl and carpet. We'll get into that here in a second. What you see up here at the top is a onboard charger, and it will charge both of the batteries when they need to be charged. Right down here is a switch. I could switch to either switch the batteries off, as I do when we store this over the winter, or I can have one battery number 1 or one battery number 2, or work on both batteries. Generally we leave this on all. Up here you see this is a new shifter. What you see down here, this black box, is it's like a glove box. Got the instruments remounted back in here and rewired, and if you saw part 1 with the demolition, you saw what a mess that was with all the haphazard wiring that had been done over time. So yeah, quite an improvement right there. Make it a lot less confusing for someone in the future. Also, everything is labeled. Every wire has a label on it, not just a number, but it actually tells you what it goes to or where it goes. Also added a panel over here in the corner. This copper bar or copper plate you see right here is all negative bus from the batteries, 12 volt negative. On this side over here, these are industrial terminal blocks made for corrosive environments. They're made by Allen Bradley, and no, you're not just going to go to the local hardware store and pick these up, but this is what I did for a living and had ready access to all this stuff. This on the lower right hand side, these little black things right here are relays, and this here is an industrial Velcro, and I can mount the relays with Velcro just by clipping them on. Then everything will wire up to here in the future as I go to install this. There was a little bit of planning involved here, and also, as you can see, every one of these wires has a label on it, and it identifies where it goes and what it does. And just in case you don't quite understand that, there's a little bag, Ziploc bag with a schematic in it of all the wiring I did do, that sits in this little plastic compartment underneath the consoles for reference in the future. If for the future owner, whatever. Obviously I understand everything that's under there, but someone else may not. I'm on the front, on the left hand side of the front of the console, we added, this is a voltage indicator here for the house power voltage. This is a courtesy light. It's a little LED in there that lights up so I can see where my beer is sitting in these cup holders, I guess. Up here's like a cigarette lighter utility outlet. And I also added a couple of USB charging ports up here for cell phones. Didn't know if we'd ever use them or not, but we do use them. They've come in real handy. This is all covered with black padded black vinyl. And it's marine vinyl over some padding. The cup holders were original. Just reused them. This was the original dash. We cleaned it up. I added a few things. This gauge right here, which is blacked out right now because there's no power on, is the motor charging voltage. So when the motor is running, or I can monitor the motor battery back there. The switch here to the left is house power. I can turn that on and it energizes a relay and turns on all the house power. So it's kind of like a master switch. And over here on the right, we added this little light. And it says bat light. I couldn't resist putting that in there when I saw that on eBay. So I bought one. It wasn't very expensive. And that controls the searchlight up front through a relay. It doesn't directly turn it on and off because of the load. I also replaced the ignition switch down here. The original one was not in very good shape. And this switch right down here switches between the port and starboard gas tanks. You may go back here once. You see here I've got two fuel gauges. Originally we didn't have this. It was kind of a guessing game, and running out of gas out on the river is not fun. Been there, done that, and done it more than once. And one time, and I'll cover that in a future video, we actually ran out of gas with one of the tanks full because we couldn't get the gas out of it. That's a whole nother story there. These switches were all replaced. Navigation lights, the docking lights, the front deck light, and of course the horn. Originally I just had a button that was all nasty and everything. And then we have all the fuses that are underneath, along with fuses that are under the console for other things. Also added a radio. This is made by Dual. It's a AM, FM, cassette, USB, aux, all kinds of inputs with a waterproof marine cover on it. It is a marine radio, but I may be changing this. It's a piece of crap, really. The front cover is detachable, I guess, so that you could take the front cover off so someone doesn't steal the radio. Well, if you're motoring down the river and you start getting into some rough water, that comes loose, and then you got to kind of hold it in, and then once it pops out, it loses power, and yeah, I was not happy with that part of it. But if you're just sitting still, it works okay. But like I said, that'll probably get replaced. Like I said, I built this at home. This is actually sitting in the shop. This is what it looks like with everything on it. What you see here is a rear view camera. Because the boat is so big, and I do have some mirrors on it, but it's really hard to see behind you. So I added a rear view mirror, or a rear view camera. It wasn't expensive, a little eBay item. And the camera mounts behind under the back deck and looks out the back. Right here is marine radio. Over here is the base for a Humminbird depth finder with GPS that we have on here. I reused the antenna. I had to make a little block for it in order to make it work out because the threads were so short. Then everything got mounted back on here. I got the shifter mounted over here on the right hand side, and this is how it's looking so far before we get it into the boat. Okay, once we got it set into the boat, now you can see a little bit more about how this was covered. We used the same carpet as we used on the base of the boat to carpet the outside edges. The top is covered with a padding, and then I put black vinyl over it. These black corners here are just aluminum angle stock you buy at the home store. Actually, this came from Menards, and we painted it black. I drilled some holes in it. These corners are used for, the original use was for professional audio speakers, and it allows them to stack. I had a bunch left over years ago. I was a DJ. What you see here, to keep the critters out of the bottom of this, and we had a problem with this with the old console, was mice and critters getting up in there and chewing the wires up. This is a shift-a-boot like you would put in your car. And once we had everything wired up good, this all got sealed shut right in here with silicone. What you see right here, this little cutout, is for shore power. I can plug a cord into that, and it'll charge the batteries and give us 120 volt power on the boat when we're at shore. Maybe all these wires hanging out of here and shift cables and everything, and the big red one here is a steering cable. That may look a little intimidating, but it wasn't as bad as one would think. Of course, like as I said, I was an electrician, so this wiring thing that's just nothing for me. Now this is a view from the top after the console was set in. Had to take the galley wall back out temporarily because I couldn't get everything back in there. It did get put in afterwards, which you see right here behind where I sit in the what you call the captain's chair. That's the head back there. This kind of gives you a view of the top of this. Don't have everything hooked up yet. Don't have the GPS receiver in there, but it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what it's starting to look like. And this is a view underneath after everything was wired back in. This up here is my shift and throttle cables here on the left, and going up here is the speedometer and the tachometer, the water pressure, and this big red cable here. Yeah, it was a dickens to put in. This was really maddening with getting the steering gear back in there and getting it aligned and getting it straight. It took quite a few tries before we had it actually centered. That was more of a challenge than I expected it to be. All the other wiring though is over here on this side. Like I said, as you can see, everything's labeled. We got everything tie wrapped back to holders that hold it back to that steel plate, so that we don't have things flopping around. Up top here is the back of that piece of junk radio we've got in there. Like I said, it'll get changed. Down here are battery boxes. Each one has a size 27 Marine Deep Cycle battery in it. Well, I'm hoping you enjoyed that build of the console. It took way more time than I thought. It was built here in the shop and then taken out and put into the boat later on. I did as much as I could here because I could work on it when I got home from work every night. It took about a week to build it, with, you know, obviously being part-time. And then it took almost 2 days to get everything run up inside it, get the thing mounted, get the steering cables on it, and get the shift cables on it, which incidentally made a little bit of a mistake, and we didn't realize it until we put it in the water. Went to back it off the trailer into the water after we got it started, and it went forward. So forward was backwards, and backwards was forward, and I dealt with that so we got it over to the dock and got it tied up, and then was able to get up underneath there and switch the cams around. A little bit of a boo-boo there. It was just the opposite of what we thought it was going to be. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this, got something out of it. If you liked it, we appreciate getting a thumbs up. Of course, we're always looking for subscribers. And if you look at that bell right next to the subscriber button and you click on that, you'll be notified every time we post a video. Otherwise, stay tuned for part 5, where I'm going to get into the great ordeal of rebuilding the seats. Thanks for watching.